All right, let's just get right into it. What if you could build a system, a machine that actually pays you to live? And what if you could do it starting from scratch in just 10 years? We're going to break down a totally different way to think about retirement. It's not about saving up some giant mountain of cash. It's about building an engine that just prints income for you.
Seriously, just take a second and picture that. You wake up, you check your bank account, and boom, another 3 grand has arrived. Every single month, like clockwork. You didn't have to lift a finger for it. Sounds like a dream, doesn't it? Well, that's the end game of this whole strategy, and it completely flips the script on how we're all taught to think about retirement.
So here's the big mindset shift. The old way, what we're all told to do, is to build up this huge pile of money. And then, when you retire, you start chipping away at it, selling off pieces to pay your bills, and just hoping you don't run out of money before you. The new way, it's totally different. You build an income engine. Your main investment, your principal, you never touch it. In fact, it keeps growing. You just live off the cash that it spits out. So first, let's really dig into that old way of thinking and see exactly why, for so many people, it just doesn't work. To make this real, we're going to follow this guy we'll call Harry. Now, 5 years ago, Harry was in a spot a lot of us can probably relate to. He had a good job, but when he looked at his retirement accounts, he was staring down some pretty depressing math. Retiring at 67 felt like a best-case scenario. And in his personal investment account, he had a big fat zero. So how did he pull it off? He started building. He built his own income engine, piece by piece. Let's see how he did it. Okay, the very first piece, the foundation of the whole thing, was an ETF called SCHD. Now, if you're not familiar, an ETF is basically just a basket of different stocks that you can buy all at once. And this one, SCHD, it's not some risky, flashy bet. Think of it as the big, heavy, reliable first gear in his entire machine. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Look at these two numbers together. That yield, almost 3.7%, that's pretty solid income. But the real magic is that second number. The actual dividend payments have been growing by nearly 11% every single year. So you're not just getting a paycheck, you're getting a paycheck that gives itself a huge raise year after year. That's the 1-2 punch right there. And this is why it's so reliable. You look inside SCHD, and it's full of companies you know. You see them every day. These are massive, boring, profitable businesses that have a special name. Dividend aristocrats. That means they have a long history of not just paying dividends, but raising them consistently, year in, year out. And this just shows you how it all starts. Look at that first year, just $220 in income. It feels tiny, right? This is the point where most people get bored and quit. But Harry didn't. He reinvested every single penny. And that's when the snowball starts to roll. It's slow at first, yeah? But it's the beginning of something that becomes almost unstoppable. All right, let's move on to the next gear in the machine. Harry was smart. He knew you don't put all your eggs in one basket. So he added a totally different kind of income stream, real estate. And he did it through another ETF, this one called VNQ. So VNQ is cool because it doesn't own stocks in the traditional sense. It owns REITs. That's real estate investment trusts. These are companies that own actual physical stuff, like the cell towers that run our phones or the giant data centers that power the internet. And look at that track record, 19 straight years of paying dividends. Think about that. Right through the 2008 crash, right through the pandemic, the checks just kept coming. Okay, so the foundation is built and it's stable. Now it was time to pour some fuel on the fire. Time for the accelerator. And here it is, an ETF called DIV. Now, this one is different. You can think of this as the portfolio's rocket fuel. It's built for one thing and one thing only, super high income. And with that, of course, comes higher risk. But Harry used it in a really smart way. He used something called a barbell strategy. You see, 80% of his money, the vast majority, was kept in those safe, stable, steadily growing funds. That's one side of the barbell. But he dedicated 20% to this high-yield accelerator. The whole point of DIV wasn't to hold it forever. It was to generate a ton of cash that he could then use to buy more of everything else. It was a way to turbocharge the whole compounding process. But the ETFs were only half of the acceleration plan. The other half was Harry himself. He made a critical choice. Anytime he got a raise, any bonus, it went straight into the machine. He even started a little side business, which brought in an extra $500 a month.
He doubled how much he was investing. And that, right there, is when the snowball really turned into an avalanche. Okay, on to the final pieces of the puzzle. This is where he added the finishing touches for balance and, just being able to sleep well at night. So first, he added something you could call portfolio insurance. It's an ETF called NOBL, and its only rule is that it only holds companies that have raised their dividend for more than 25 years in a row. We're talking rock solid. Then he added a small wildcard, NUDV, which was focused on some newer companies that had just shown some absolutely explosive dividend growth recently. And here it is, the whole thing all put together, Harry's 5 ETF dividend machine. You can see how it's balanced. 30% in that SCHD foundation, 25% in the VNQ real estate diversifier, 20% in the DIIV accelerator for that cash flow boost, and the last quarter split between the NOBL insurance policy and the NUDV growth wildcard. Each piece has a very specific job. So what does this all add up to? The projection, after 10 years of this exact strategy, consistently investing, always reinvesting, is over $35,000 a year in passive income. That's almost $3,000 a month, coming from a portfolio worth over $800,000 that he never, ever has to sell. But listen, this isn't just about picking the right ETFs and watching the money roll in. We got to talk about the true cost of this kind of freedom. Because this wasn't magic. There's a real human element here, and it's called discipline. Harry made a very conscious choice. He decided to focus on building wealth instead of looking wealthy. While his friends were leasing new cars, he was buying more shares of SCHD. He cooked at home instead of ordering takeout. He made real sacrifices for his future self. And that, right there, is the hardest part. And let's be real, okay? No investment strategy is risk-free. It's just not. Companies can, and sometimes do, cut their dividends. The stock market will definitely crash again at some point, and you absolutely have to have a plan for taxes. This is about making smart, informed decisions, not just blindly hoping for the best. But at the end of the day, here's what Harry really understood, and it's the most important takeaway. The risk of the market going up and down, it is nothing compared to the guaranteed risk of doing nothing at all. Every year you wait, every month you put it off, that's a year of compounding that you can never, ever get back. So really, the choice is yours. 10 years from now, you can have a decade of excuses, or you can have a dividend machine that's working for you. Your future self is waiting for you to make a decision. The clock's ticking. So, what's it going to be?